We're the Vinyl Verdict. I'm Jacob.
I'm Michael.
Today we're taking a look at the Red and Blue albums released by the Beatles and the remixes that Giles Martin did. Look, most of the community has spoken about these, and you've heard a lot of different opinions. So I think we're probably more apathetic than most. When these remixes happen, we're more excited about the bonus discs on the CDs probably than the remixes themselves. I don't know. I mean, these albums were always a little bit strange. Your original Beatles generation, you bought the original albums.
Yes.
I was much later, and I bought the remastered CDs, which were all the UK versions of the albums. So this is more for the second generation compilation 70s people. So I don't think we have as much nostalgia around them. It was nice to get edited versions. I guess the thing that really jumps out is like Dear Prudence, for example, and a couple of these other songs have clean beginnings and endings. Other than that, I don't know if there's really a reason to own them independently if you're a mega fan.
When it first came out in the 70s, it went right by me. I mean, I had all the music.
Extending this, they added like basically 2 discs or 2 vinyls to each of these. So now they're making up something like a quarter of the whole discography, which is not really the point of a compilation. So I have mixed feelings about that as well.
They all sound good. From Love Me Do onward, and I see sometimes, as I say, the things done with the vocals and the bass and drums brought forward and things more in the center. There are cases, as you say, where just, because it's fun to hear, and these songs that are just so much a part of you and so much inside of you already because they were so much a part of our lives. But generally, I just love the songs. I'm not even sure it's necessary, but it's been done, and I like them, but I like them the way they were too, so that's all I know.
This does get into nostalgia, and this is where I think emotions get involved. Despite the limitations of technology at the time with stereo, people have drawn associations. In Eleanor Rigby, they expect the vocals to all be on one speaker, completely panned to the right. Is that what the Beatles wanted? I don't think so. I think that in most stereo mixing, they left the studio after mono was done. So there wasn't really a reason things were panned that extreme. And so this is an effort to go back and kind of recreate the feeling and ambiance of the mono recordings in stereo. I understand the spirit of what they're trying to do. Again, I don't know, that's a very exciting job. I guess it's kind of thankless work, and maybe that's what Giles is discovering with Beatles fans.
Well, he's touching things that are iconic and have reached a level of myth, actually. Yeah, the whole best of thing as applied to the Beatles never struck me because I knew the chronological order of everything released as millions of other fans did. And I associate the songs with the albums, and I was good with that.
And I probably started the process of giving like equal weight to a lot of different eras of the Beatles' history. I think the idea of sampling each album fairly evenly and all of that. The Please Please Me stuff, Help, and Rubber Soul seem like they were cleaned up the most, or like there's the most opportunity to. I just can hear more separation. Like with the Beatles, Hard Day's Night, it's really hard. I just don't know if there's that much to work with, even with AI in the process of demixing. It still is very hard to track different instruments. I think I Saw Her Standing There has some of the best use of like separating the guitars, so you really hear John's guitar in, I think it's the right speaker, and it's isolated pretty well, whereas it used to, I think it was still separated, but you couldn't really pick it out from the George guitar, so that's a nice rhythm piece. She Loves You, I don't think has ever sounded worse. I don't know why, I'm not blaming Giles. I think it's just, there's not much to work with. It's, a mono recording, and it just seems so trebly.
The drums are quite prominent.
Yeah. It's like Day and Night though, so She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's like I Want to Hold Your Hand sounds like it was recorded last week. She Loves You does sound like it's 60 years ago. Day Tripper, I loved hearing like the volume pedal I was showing you in the bridge in that one section. That volume pedal has never sounded so clear. I love hearing that. Nowhere Man, I love having the dry vocals, and was never a fan of reverb on a lot of these songs, and I guess that's going back to before the 87 remaster. So Help and Rubber Soul were remixed for the CD releases. It was George Martin's intention to actually remaster all the CDs in 87, but he didn't have time, so he only did Help and Rubber Soul. Now Giles is going back, and then you get into the latter half of the Beatles era that's already, these mixes have already been released. So Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, White Album, Abbey Road, Let It Be, basically the same mixes. We've been hearing these for a couple of years now. It's not one of my favorite Beatles songs, but Old Brown Shoe does sound really different on here. You just can hear a lot of the vocalizations and Paul screaming in the background, and The drums are much heavier. I think that song's always been kind of ignored, and it's a very muddy mix. So I actually think that was a highlight on here. So,
do you feel Hey Bulldog was done about the same, or do you feel that stood out a little more for the production?
It's hard to say without listening to them back to back. I mean, yeah, it sounds great, I think, but that one was also remixed for the Yellow Submarine soundtrack a couple, like 20 years ago or whatever. So, it's kind of, there's this balance between the early songs. There's a lot of room for improvement, but they're pretty limited by the recordings that exist and the mixes, and then the later songs, they're already mixed pretty well, but you could play with them a lot more. So I would almost prefer like a stripped down version, or them to completely remix this song. So if you're gonna make us pay for a new remix, let's like really remix this and not try to replace the more standard versions. They added, again, 2 discs to this. Most of the songs they added are George Harrison. So there's a little bit of maybe revisionism of trying to get a lot of equal weight to George Harrison's songs. I don't know if that's really the case historically. I love all songs, like we said. We'll listen to every album all the way through. But I don't know if I would call I Me Mine a highlight off of Let It Be.
There's been some discussion about that, and including Within You Without You, and they were not major Beatle releases then or now. The engine driving this creatively was Lennon McCartney, with nice contributions and crucial playing from the other 2 Beatles, who were deserving of all praise. But the writing team was powerful, and I think it shows here.
It's an interesting choice. I mean, good sales for the holiday, but I would, again, as a completionist, much rather get these one album at a time with bonus tracks, with really specific, with mono remixes as well. It leaves more to be desired, and it doesn't fully scratch the itch of a Beatles fan of hearing full versions of these albums and the periods they're from. You're just getting a sample. Happy to have it. We'll keep listening to it. I would say it makes a big difference in headphones, on speakers. It's fairly similar, and we've had a lot of remixes in the past, so fingers crossed we get the Rubber Soul remix next year. Cool. Those are the Red and Blue albums, which, happy to have a release in 2023, and hopefully more soon.